Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? She stood there, back straight, hands still, as if silence was a kind of armor. The rotors outside hadn't even stopped spinning, and already she could feel it, the weight of judgment, the kind that cuts deeper than any weapon. Lieutenant Maya Reeves stepped off the helicopter and into the dust-choked air of Blacksite Echo, a classified facility buried somewhere in the eastern mountains of Afghanistan, a place that officially didn't exist. The sunlight was merciless, bouncing off the concrete blast walls and watchtower glass, slicing across her face like interrogation lights. She blinked through the grit, lifted her rucksack, and adjusted her collar. A strand of dark hair broke loose and fell against her neck, brushing over the tattoo. It was tribal, intricate, sweeping down her right shoulder in layered geometric lines and fatting arcs. To anyone else, it was just ink, strange for someone supposedly from Langley. To her, it was a memory system, a code, a life etched in pattern and pain. The first man she met was Captain Miller, tall, square-shouldered, unimpressed. His fatigues looked starched even here in the dust. He scanned her orders like someone checking a grocery list. "Another analyst," he muttered, signing the paper with his thumbprint. "Langley keeps sending kids. Try not to get in the way of the real operators." His gaze lingered on her tattoo. "Nice ink," he added with a dry chuckle. "Spring break souvenir." Maya forced a polite smile. "Something like that, sir." She didn't correct him. Not here. Not yet. The truth wouldn't have changed anything. In this place, respect wasn't given, it was extracted slowly through silence and proof. Inside the compound, she passed soldiers lounging against armored trucks, rifles resting on knees. Their laughter followed her like smoke, casual, dismissive. "Who's the new girl?" "Langley Barbie." "Check the tattoo, maybe it's her resume." She kept walking, counted the cameras, counted the guards, counted how many eyes lingered too long. The barracks were converted shipping containers, stacked like forgotten crates on the far edge of the site. 6 bunks, thin mattresses, air that smelled of oil, sand, and exhaustion. 3 women shared the space, Garcia, Thompson, and Lynn, all operators, all watching her as she unpacked. Garcia nodded toward the carbine she slid carefully into her footlocker, matte black, modified grip, custom optics. "That's quite a piece," she said. "Standard issue for analysts these days." "I qualified marksman," Maya replied softly. A pause. Garcia smirked, half respectful, half testing. "Sure you did." Maya closed the locker without answering. That night in the mess hall, conversation quieted when she walked in, then rose again, louder, like the volume dial had been turned up just to push her out. Metal trays clattered. Laughter echoed. Someone near the far table whispered, "Bet she got that ink to impress a boyfriend back at Langley." Another voice replied, "Or to distract people from not knowing which end of a rifle to hold." The jokes rolled over her, practiced and sharp. She didn't flinch. She just sat alone at the corner table, methodically eating whatever the stew was supposed to be, eyes flicking left, right, corners, angles. She wasn't here to be liked. What they didn't know, couldn't know, was that each pattern in that tattoo was data. Every curve represented an operation, every dot a coordinate, every line an encryption sequence, one she could recall perfectly from memory. She'd spent years designing it with her mentor, Colonel Mayer Tangasdal, back when she still believed intelligence work could exist without shadows. He used to say, "One day, someone will look at that tattoo and laugh. Let them. Their laughter will hide you until you need to be seen." Tonight, those words replayed in her mind like a whisper. Later, as the compound slept, she slipped quietly into the communications hub, claiming she needed to send preliminary reports. The operator on duty nodded, barely looking up. Inside, screens glowed blue against her face. She logged into the classified terminal, but not under the name they gave her. Her fingers moved fast, not the hesitant pecking of an analyst, but the sure rhythm of someone trained to bypass digital locks. She opened a secure satellite channel. The encryption key sequence matched one of the shapes on her shoulder, a pattern no one else would recognize. "Echo secure," she whispered into the mic. "Reeves reporting." Static hissed, then a faint male voice replied, distorted through layers of security. "Go ahead, Commander." The word commander hung in the air for a second, out of place in this black box of secrecy. "Intel inconsistent," she said. "Activity doesn't match the cell patterns from Haqqani. I believe Echo's being fed false intercepts." "Proceed with caution," came the response. "Verify on site. Report anomalies directly to command. Burn channel after use." "Understood." She ended the call, wiped all traces, rebooted the system. But as she stood, she caught voices outside, low, serious. She moved closer, just enough to hear. "Orders from up top. We hit the village at dawn. Target confirmed." "Confirmed." That was fast. "Command wants it done. We move before sunrise." Her stomach tightened. That couldn't be right. The last intel package had placed the high-value target hundreds of kilometers south. Something didn't add up. Either command had changed the mission without her knowing, or someone inside Echo was lying. She stepped back from the door, pulse steady, mind racing. If the data was being manipulated, the entire operation could be a setup, bait for something bigger. Then the alarms went off. Blaring. Metallic and deafening. The base flooded with red light. "All personnel report to the command center. Immediate briefing." Maya grabbed her sidearm, checked the chamber, and moved with the crowd toward the war room. The air was thick, a mix of dust and adrenaline. Captain Miller stood at the front, voice raised over the noise. "We've intercepted chatter confirming an imminent attack on Blacksite Echo. Teams Alpha and Bravo will deploy to perimeter defense. Everyone else secures sensitive material for evacuation." He pointed to the digital map. Lines, coordinates, red markers flickering across the valley. Maya's eyes narrowed. The positions were wrong. The frequency patterns were too clean, manufactured. "Sir," she said, cutting through the noise. "Permission to speak." Miller looked up annoyed. "Make it quick, analyst." "These intercepts, they don't match the Haqqani signatures. The structure's too uniform, it looks like." "A diversion," he interrupted mockingly. "We'll take your theory under advisement." A few operators snickered. Someone whispered, "The tattoo girl thinks she knows better than SIGINT." Miller's jaw tightened. "Follow protocol, Alpha Bravo move. Everyone else lockdown procedures dismissed." Maya's protest died on her tongue. She watched the teams grab their gear and file out, including Garcia. Their boots pounded like a drumbeat fading into the night. Something inside her sank. She knew what she'd just seen, false intelligence planted to pull defenses away from the base. If she was right, then the real threat wasn't outside the perimeter. It was already inside. She returned to her bunk quietly, waited for the compound to settle, then slipped back into the communications hub. Her heartbeat was calm, too calm, that dangerous calm before instinct becomes action. She bypassed 2 security firewalls, tracing data packets upstream. And there it was, proof. An unauthorized relay bouncing signals through a dummy satellite. Someone at Echo had been transmitting falsified intercepts. Then came the sound faint behind her, a footstep. She turned, hand to her weapon. Garcia stood in the doorway, shadows slicing across her face. "You're not an analyst," Garcia said evenly. Maya's voice was low. "And you're not just a communications tech." The silence between them was electric. 2 women who'd both seen more than they were supposed to admit. Then from somewhere deep inside the compound, gunfire. Short bursts, too close, not from the perimeter. Garcia's eyes widened. "That's inside the wire." Maya's hand tightened on her weapon. "They've drawn our people out," she said. "It's an inside job." The lights flickered. Then the base descended into chaos. They moved fast, through corridors filled with smoke and shouting. Somewhere an explosion tore through the storage bay, alarms screamed. At the junction near the armory, they found two soldiers pinned down behind overturned crates. Their uniforms were identical to the attackers. One of the pinned soldiers gasped, "They're our own there." Then he was hit. Maya's training took over, cold, precise, ruthless. She dropped behind cover, returning fire with lethal accuracy. Every movement was fluid, deliberate, the kind that comes from a decade of repetition. Garcia looked at her differently now. No trace of skepticism, only shock. "Fall back to Delta position," Maya ordered, voice sharp, commanding. "Move." For a moment the compound felt like a nightmare, shadows moving through smoke, echoes of betrayal everywhere. But within that storm, Maya was steady, grounded, the mockery, the dismissal gone. All that remained was purpose. They reached the communications hub again. Captain Miller stumbled in behind them, blood streaking down his forehead. "We're compromised," he coughed, then collapsed. Maya knelt beside him, stabilizing his wound with one hand while scanning the entry points. She issued orders with clipped precision: cover sectors, establish fallback, seal doors. When Miller's eyes fluttered open again, he looked up at her with disbelief. "Who the hell are you, really?" But before she could answer, the main door exploded inward. 3 attackers stormed through the smoke. 3 shots later, they were on the ground. And in that single, brutal moment, everyone in that room understood that the quiet analyst with the tattoo was something else entirely. The smoke hung heavy in the air, thick, metallic, tasting of burned wiring and gun oil. The room still echoed with the ringing silence that follows gunfire. 3 bodies lay sprawled near the door, their uniforms identical to the rest of Blacksite Echo's personnel. Maya's weapon remained raised, muzzle steady, her breath shallow. Around her, the surviving operators stared like they were seeing her for the first time. The soft-spoken analyst who arrived 48 hours ago was gone, replaced by something sharpened, deliberate, deadly. "Secure the door," she ordered. Her tone was quiet, but it carried authority that cut through the confusion. Garcia moved instantly, dragging a table against the frame while another operator stacked crates in front of it. Miller, still bleeding, struggled to his feet. "What the hell just happened?" he demanded. "Internal breach," Maya replied, scanning the hallway through the shattered glass. "Half this base isn't ours." Miller pressed a hand to his wound. "That's impossible. Everyone was vetted." "No one's vetted in the dark," she said. "You pulled your perimeter units out. Whoever fed those intercepts wanted this." He stared at her, confusion giving way to a dawning fear. Maya turned to Garcia. "How many active personnel left inside the compound?" "Counting us," Garcia said, "maybe a dozen. Then we hold until we can re-establish comms with command." Miller staggered closer, lowering his voice. "Who trained you?" She looked at him, long enough for the question to die on his tongue. Outside, automatic fire erupted again. Somewhere down the corridor, a grenade detonated, shaking the floor beneath them. Dust rained from the ceiling. Garcia swore under her breath. "They're moving fast." "They know the layout," Maya said. "They were stationed here long enough to memorize it." The realization hit Miller like a cold slap. The people they'd been eating with, briefing with, drinking with, half of them had been waiting for this night. Maya knelt beside one of the fallen attackers, pulling off his glove. His hand bore a small scar, surgical clean, an implant port. "They've been inside for months," she murmured. "Sleeper assets embedded." "Who are they working for?" Miller asked. "That's what I intend to find out." She rose, reloaded, and glanced around the room, the operators, exhausted and frightened, clinging to structure like a lifeline. They needed direction. They needed someone to tell them the next move. And for the first time since arriving at Echo, Maya didn't hide. "We're going to the vault," she said. "It's the only system still hard linked to Washington. If the servers fall, the whole network goes with it. Miller hesitated. The vault's 4 sectors down. We'll never make it through. Then we make it through, she said simply. Her calm terrified him more than the explosions outside. They moved as a unit, silent, deliberate, rifles up. The corridors that once felt sterile now pulsed with menace. Overturned tables, shell casings, streaks of blood. The walls hummed faintly with the vibration of distant detonations. As they advanced, Garcia whispered, "You've done this before." Maya didn't answer, but her movements did. Every turn, every corner check, every motion was precise. She didn't walk like an analyst. She glided like someone accustomed to being hunted. They reached the armory first, stripped clean. Someone had cleared it ahead of them. Maya scanned the floor, reading the tracks like language. 4-man team, moved fast, loaded heavy ordnance. Garcia frowned. How can you tell? Because the prints dragged slightly to the left, weighted packs, and that oil smear, she pointed to the faint trail near the wall. M249 barrels, they're heading toward the vault. Miller stared at her, realization growing like a storm. You're not just some embedded intel officer, are you? Maya gave a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. Does it matter right now? He didn't press further. He didn't need to. They moved again, this time through smoke that burned the eyes and coated the lungs. Every light flickered red, and in the distance, the faint sound of a fire suppression system malfunctioning hissed like a dying breath. They came upon the first body, Sergeant Hill, one of Miller's perimeter men, shot clean through the chest. Maya knelt, checked his tag, and murmured something under her breath, a small habit she'd carried from years in the field. Not a prayer, more like acknowledgement. Garcia noticed. You knew him. Maya shook her head. No, but he deserves to be remembered by name. There was a weight to her tone, that quiet, haunted rhythm of someone who'd said too many names too many times. By the time they reached Sector 3, their numbers were down to 8. 2 had stayed behind to cover their retreat. The corridor ahead was narrow, perfect for an ambush. Maya gestured silently, signaling a breach maneuver. The operators followed, hesitant but obedient. They didn't question her authority anymore. They just moved the way soldiers do when they've found someone worth following. They pushed through the doorway and walked straight into hell. Gunfire exploded from both ends. A storm of bullets shredded the walls, kicking sparks from the metal frames. The lead operator dropped instantly. Garcia screamed something Maya couldn't hear. Flash out, Maya yelled, tossing a grenade down the hall. The white light tore through the smoke, and in that half-second of blindness, Maya charged forward. She didn't hesitate. The analyst mask was gone. What moved through that corridor was something colder, cleaner, a professional killer doing her job. 3 men down, 4th wounded, 5th retreated. Garcia stared in shock as Maya calmly swapped mags and gestured for the team to advance. By the time the gunfire faded, only silence remained and the acrid smell of cordite. They pushed on toward the vault. Miller limped beside her, one arm pressed to his wound. Why didn't you tell me who you were? Would you have listened? She asked quietly. He didn't answer. When they reached the heavy blast door of the vault, Maya felt a ripple of relief, short-lived. The access panel blinked red, breached. Inside, the door was already half open. The bodies of the 2 guards were slumped near the threshold, execution style. Maya's stomach tightened. They entered cautiously. The hum of servers filled the air, a low mechanical pulse, almost like a heartbeat. On the main monitor, streams of code scrolled across the screen. Data was being siphoned off terabytes at a time to an external relay. We're too late, Garcia whispered. Maya stepped forward, studying the interface. Then, with a steady hand, she removed a small metallic drive from a hidden compartment inside her boot. No, she said, this isn't over. She plugged the device into the port. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with a precision that stunned everyone watching. Garcia leaned in. "What are you doing?" "They think they're stealing from us," Maya said, eyes locked on the code. "But I'm piggybacking their transmission. Every byte they take gives us their route, their contacts, their entire network." Miller exhaled. "You're counter-hacking them." "Not quite. I'm turning their theft into a confession." For a moment, no one spoke. The room pulsed with the soft glow of data transfer and the distant rumble of destruction. Then a new sound broke through, a klaxon, sharper than before. Garcia checked the display. "They've triggered the self-destruct sequence. 15 minutes to detonation." Miller's voice cracked. "You mean they're going to level the whole site?" "Everything," Maya said. "No evidence, no survivors." She finished the transfer, yanked the drive and tucked it into her chest plate. "Time to move." But before they could, the door behind them slid open, not forced, not breached, just opened. And there he stood. A man in full tactical gear, flanked by armed soldiers. His posture was calm, his expression unreadable. Captain James Harlow, commander of the Regional Special Operations Task Force. The room froze. "Commander Reeves," he said evenly, "I see you've had a situation." Miller blinked, struggling to process. "Commander what?" Harlow's gaze swept the room, the corpses, the smoke, the bleeding men. "SEAL Team 6 sends its regards." The words hit like thunder. Garcia looked at Maya, realization dawning. The tattoo, the calm, the training, it all made sense. Miller stared pale. You're your Navy." Maya straightened, ignoring the blood soaking her sleeve. "Lieutenant Commander, Naval Special Warfare," she said. "Attached under deep cover. Codename, Echo Shepherd." Miller's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Harlow nodded approvingly. "Good work holding the line." "Not done yet," Maya said. "The site's wired to blow." He turned to his men. "Secure the intel, clear an exit." The room erupted in motion, shouts, orders, boots pounding. Maya worked the final sequence, rerouting her encrypted transfer to the NSA satellite grid. The tattoo along her neck caught the red emergency light, revealing subtle lines that matched the encryption patterns dancing on the screen. Garcia whispered, half in awe, "The tattoo, it's your key." Maya didn't look up. "You can't hack what's written in flesh and memory." Then the screen blinked green. "Transfer complete." She pulled the drive, smashed the terminal with the butt of her rifle and turned to Harlow. "We're done here." "Then we get out," he said. The first explosion ripped through the east wing as they made it into the hallway. Ceiling tiles collapsed, flames licking the walls. They ran, all of them, through corridors collapsing around them, through smoke that stung their eyes, through fire that bent the air itself. Maya moved last, covering their retreat. Every instinct told her to keep pushing forward, to not look back, but she did, just once. Through the haze, she saw the tattoo's reflection in the shattered glass, a reminder of everything she'd been forced to hide. For a second the sound fell away. No gunfire, no shouting, just that faint heartbeat of the servers dying behind her. She whispered to herself, "Appearances deceive, but truth doesn't need an audience." Then she ran. Outside, the night was alive with chaos. Helicopters circling, spotlights cutting through the smoke, the mountain valley below glowing with the first rising fireball of the self-destruct chain. Harlow's voice barked over the comms. "All units clear the blast zone." They reached the final ridge, just as the world behind them turned white. The shockwave hit like a hammer, throwing dust and light in every direction. The mountain swallowed the sound. When Maya turned, Blacksite Echo was gone, erased. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel the weight of it, the loss, the exhaustion, the quiet vindication that came when truth finally stepped into light, even for a moment. No one laughed at her tattoo now. The explosion still echoed in their bones. Dust drifted down like slow rain, coating their uniforms, their faces, their lungs. The night was a blur of orange and gray, burning debris scattered across the ridgeline where the survivors had taken cover. The black site was gone, wiped from the map, erased as if it had never existed. For a long time, no one spoke. Only the hum of rotor blades in the distance broke the silence. Maya stood apart from the others, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the mountain glowed faintly red. Her sleeve was torn, blood seeping through the fabric, but she didn't feel the pain yet. She just stared, not at the destruction, but at what it meant. The mission was over. The cover was gone, and the ghosts she thought she'd buried were awake again. Captain Miller limped toward her, still clutching the bandaged wound at his side. His voice was rough. "Command sending evac. 20 minutes." Maya nodded. "Good." "You didn't answer my question back there," he said. "Why didn't you tell us who you were?" She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Because sometimes people show you who they are when they think you're nobody." Miller swallowed. He wanted to say something, an apology maybe, but the words wouldn't come. So he just nodded, and for the first time there was no disdain in his eyes. Garcia approached, carrying a small portable terminal she'd salvaged. "I've got the last packet from your uplink," she said. "It's bouncing off a covert relay. Looks like Command already started tracing the origin." Maya took it, scanning the data, her brow furrowed. "This isn't just one infiltration, it's a network. Echo wasn't the target, it was the test." "A test for what?" Miller asked. She didn't answer. Not yet. The data on the screen glowed pale blue, streaming numbers and coordinates that reached far beyond Afghanistan, Europe, South America, the Pacific. Whoever had orchestrated this wasn't done. The sound of approaching helicopters grew louder. Harlow's voice cut through the static on the comms. "Extraction inbound. 30 clicks out. We're wheels up in 5. Maya closed the terminal. "We move." They descended the rocky ridge in silence, the wind carrying the acrid smell of burning circuitry from the crater below. Garcia glanced back once, whispering, "Hard to believe that place ever existed." Maya replied quietly, "That's the point of a black site. You're not supposed to." When they reached the extraction zone, a flat stretch of sand near the dry riverbed, 2 Black Hawks were waiting, rotors chopping the night air into shards. Harlow stood by the ramp, scanning the perimeter with his rifle. He nodded as Maya approached. "You got the package." She tapped the small encrypted drive secured in her vest. "Right here." "Good," he said. "Let's get you home." Home, the word didn't sit right. For people like them, home wasn't a place. It was a temporary silence between missions. As the team boarded, Miller turned to her. "You saved a lot of lives tonight, Commander." Maya's voice was soft. "Not enough." The helicopter lifted off, tilting away from the burning remains of Echo. Below them, the mountains stretched like the spine of a dead giant, endless and indifferent. Garcia stared through the open hatch. All that intel, all those people gone. "Not gone," Maya said, "exposed." Harlow turned toward her. "You really think we can track the network from that drive?" "I think we have no choice," she said. He nodded, studying her. "You've done good work in the shadows, Reeves. But this," he gestured toward the fireball still rising in the distance, "this is going to draw attention." "It already has," she replied. "That's what they wanted." He frowned. "You think they wanted us to see them?" She didn't look at him when she answered. "Yes, because they think we won't understand what we're looking at." Harlow watched her for a moment, then turned back toward the cockpit. The rest of the flight passed in silence. When they finally touched down at the secure airbase, the survivors were met by a line of medics and intelligence officers. Floodlights bathed everything in harsh white. It felt too bright after the darkness they'd come from. Maya disembarked last, carrying the encrypted drive. Every step she took felt heavier, like gravity itself had thickened. Inside the debrief tent, A senior intelligence officer waited, an older man with sharp eyes and the calm authority of someone used to bad news. "Commander Reeves," he greeted, rising. "I'm Colonel Aiken. You've had quite a night." "Yes, sir." He gestured toward the table. "We've already begun decrypting the relay. Preliminary traces suggest deep state infiltration, compromised assets in our own network." Maya met his gaze. "It goes higher than that. Whoever orchestrated this wanted us to find them." He frowned, meaning they're testing our response time, our vulnerabilities. They're not after data anymore, Colonel. They're after trust. The word hung there, heavier than any report. Aiken nodded slowly. "And you think Echo was bait?" "I know it was." He leaned back, exhaling. "We'll pursue every lead. In the meantime, Command wants you debriefed and cleared for medical." She didn't move. "I want to stay with the analysis." "That's not a request, Commander," Aiken said. "You're wounded and you've been through hell. Take the order." She studied him for a long moment, then saluted and left without another word. Outside, the night air was colder, cleaner. She walked toward the medical tents, but her mind was still back at Echo, replaying the faces, the brief laughter, the way they looked at her before everything went wrong. She'd done this before. Different names, different continents, same story. People never believed what they couldn't understand. And when the truth came out, it always came too late. Inside the medical tent, the nurse peeled away her torn sleeve and whistled softly. "You took a hell of a hit, Commander." "Just a graze." The nurse smiled faintly. "You SEALs always say that." Maya didn't correct her. When the nurse left, Maya glanced at her reflection in the small metal tray beside the bed. The fluorescent light caught the edge of her tattoo, highlighting the scars beneath the ink, faint, but still there. She remembered the first time she'd earned one of those lines, during a mission in Aleppo, when an extraction went sideways, and she'd carried a wounded Marine for 2 miles through rubble and fire. She remembered the second, a loss in Yemen, a teammate who never made it home. Every line told a story, every mark a name she couldn't say out loud. She touched the edge of the tattoo, whispering to herself, "Appearances deceive, judgment costs." Footsteps broke her thought. Garcia entered quietly, her arm in a sling. "They said you'd be here." Maya turned. "How's your shoulder?" "Hurts less than my pride," Garcia said with a half smile. Then her expression softened. "You saved us, all of us." Maya shook her head. "I did my job." Garcia hesitated, then stepped closer. "When I saw you that first day, I thought you were just another suit, someone who'd never heard a bullet up close. We were wrong. I was wrong." Maya looked at her, steady, unreadable. "Then don't waste it, remember it." Garcia nodded slowly. "What happens now?" "Now," Maya said quietly, "we wait, and we prepare for whoever comes next." The words lingered, not a promise, not a threat, but something heavier, inevitability. 3 days later, the survivors were flown to Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, Germany. The air there smelled of antiseptic and rain. Reporters didn't know their names. No headlines mentioned Blacksite Echo. Officially, nothing had happened. But inside that hospital room, when Captain Miller walked in on crutches and the rest of the team followed behind him, the silence spoke for itself. He stood by her bed. "Commander," he said formally, "we came to thank you." Maya gestured to the empty chairs. "Sit." They obeyed, not out of command but respect. She told them the truth, the part they were cleared to know, that the attack on Echo was part of a multinational infiltration network, that their survival had exposed something far bigger than anyone had imagined. Garcia asked the question that had been sitting in her eyes since that night. "Why didn't you tell us who you were from the beginning?" Maya paused, then traced the edge of her tattoo with one finger. "Because sometimes the best way to find the truth is to let people underestimate you." No one spoke after that. The room just breathed. She looked around the faces, men and women who had once mocked her, doubted her, dismissed her, now sitting in silence, listening like students to a teacher they almost lost. "This ink," she said softly, "tells my story. The operations, the people I've lost, the battles fought in shadows. I wear it not for decoration, but as a reminder that appearances deceive, and judgment always costs." Miller lowered his head. "You've earned my respect, Commander. More than that, you've earned our trust." She nodded once, grateful but distant. Outside, thunder rolled softly across the horizon. And for the first time in weeks, Maya allowed herself to breathe. Not because the danger was over, but because it never really would be. The fight wasn't finished. It had only changed shape. She turned toward the window, watching the rain trail down the glass, whispering more to herself than anyone else. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. The others didn't reply. They didn't need to. Because they understood now what the tattoo meant, what she'd carried, what it cost her to stay silent until the world caught up. And outside, in the reflection of the rain-streaked window, her tattoo shimmered faintly, a map of pain and purpose etched in flesh, waiting for the next battle she'd never brag about. It started with a name, a single, unremarkable alias buried deep inside the decrypted files. But names, Maya knew, had gravity. They pulled entire worlds toward them. 2 weeks after the destruction of Blacksite Echo, she was back in uniform, not the loose fatigues of a cover analyst, but the black tactical rig of naval special warfare. Her injuries were still healing, the scar on her arm a raw pink line against brown skin. She stood in the situation room of a secure facility in Germany, the one few even within the Pentagon knew existed. The map before her was lit by blue backlight, dozens of red dots marking infiltration points across 3 continents. Colonel Aiken's voice cut through the hum of computers. "We traced the false intelligence relays from Echo. Each one originated from a different handler cell, not rogue states, not foreign powers, contractors, private entities with government clearance." Maya folded her arms. "Corporate espionage." "Worse," Aiken said, "corporate war." The room fell quiet. Aiken turned to her. "You've been in the field longer than most of my officers, Commander. What's your read?" Maya's eyes tracked the pattern across the map, the timing, the geography, the spread. Coordinated destabilization. Someone's testing how fast we fracture when trust erodes. They're not stealing intel. They're building narratives. A younger analyst frowned. "Narratives." Maya nodded slowly. False data becomes false history. False history justifies action. Whoever's doing this doesn't need to destroy us, they just need us to destroy each other. The analyst stared at her like she'd spoken a different language, but Aiken understood. He'd seen the cost of misinformation firsthand. He gestured toward the screen. "These sites are all Tier 1 security zones, black operations, covert programs, experimental tech. Every one of them could vanish, and no one would ever admit they existed." Garcia, sitting beside Maya, muttered, "Like Echo." Maya said nothing, but her jaw tightened. Aiken turned back to the room. "Commander Reeves will lead the field team. She knows the enemy's tactics. She's already proven she can operate under deep cover." Maya lifted her eyes. "What's the mission?" "Identify the central node. Cut it off quietly." "And if we can't do it quietly?" Aiken met her gaze without blinking. "Then you do it anyway." The briefing ended. The room cleared. When the others were gone, Maya lingered. The screens dimmed until only one was left, the encrypted relay signature from Echo. She stared at it, the repeating pattern pulsing faintly. It wasn't random. It was rhythmic, familiar. She felt a chill crawl up her spine. That sequence, that pulse, she'd seen it once before. Years ago, during a mission in Syria that went wrong. A mission her unit never talked about again. She shut the screen off. The ghosts didn't need names tonight. Later that night, she sat alone in the barracks, cleaning her weapon by habit more than need. Her hands moved automatically, wipe, check, load, repeat. Garcia entered quietly, still in uniform, her short hair pulled back under a cap. "They're putting us back in the field already?" she asked. Maya nodded. "That's the job." Garcia hesitated, then sat opposite her. "You ever think about stopping, after what happened at Echo?" Maya looked up, eyes tired but steady. "Stopping doesn't erase what's already been done. It just gives it time to grow." Garcia leaned back, exhaling. "You sound like someone who's seen too much." Maya gave a faint smile. "You don't come back from places like Echo and see less." For a moment, the two women sat in silence, soldiers sharing the unspoken understanding that trauma doesn't vanish. It just finds new corners to hide in. Garcia broke the silence. "You ever tell anyone what that tattoo really means?" Maya glanced down at her shoulder where the ink curved like armor. "Not in full. It's a record. Every line marks an operation, successes, failures, people lost. The last edition was Echo." Garcia studied her. "And when it's full?" Maya's voice was quiet. "Then I stop adding names." The next morning, their transport lifted off before dawn, a C-130 flying low over the Mediterranean, its interior vibrating with engine hum and tension. The team was small: Maya, Garcia, and 4 new operatives transferred from different commands. Harlow had returned to task force operations. Miller was still recovering. Maya hadn't seen him since Germany. Part of her was relieved. The new mission, Operation Quiet Rain, was simple on paper. Track the digital trail from Echo's infiltration to its next target, a data storage facility in Greece run by a private contractor. But simplicity in black operations never meant safety. As they flew, one of the younger operators, a tall Texan named Rios, leaned forward. "Commander, rumor says you took down half a platoon at Echo on your own. That true?" Maya didn't look up. Rumors are usually louder than truth. He grinned. "That a yes or a no?" She chambered her rifle, the click echoing softly in the cabin. "It's a warning not to believe everything you hear." The others chuckled, but the laughter faded quickly. The tension never fully left the air around her. When the pilot's voice crackled over the comms, "Approaching drop zone, 30 seconds," Maya secured her gear and pulled down her mask. Her pulse was steady, controlled. The fear that used to keep her alive now lived quietly inside her, tamed into instinct. They jumped at dawn. The air was cold and clean. Below them, the Aegean shimmered like molten glass, and the island's coastline curved into view: cliffs, olive fields, and a cluster of white buildings at the far end. The facility looked peaceful from above. It was. They landed silently on the outskirts, moving through brush toward the perimeter fence. Garcia whispered, "Thermal shows 4 guards, minimal movement." Maya's eyes swept the compound. "That's too few. Either it's automated or it's bait." Rios frowned. "How can you tell?" She gestured to the towers. "No rotation, no light sweep. Whoever's inside doesn't expect to be seen, which means they want us to come in." The team exchanged glances. Maya crouched low. "We go in clean, no chatter, 2 teams. If something feels wrong, it is." They breached the fence without noise, moved through the courtyard like ghosts. The buildings were too quiet, doors open, lights flickering, monitors left on standby. Garcia muttered, "It's empty." Maya's hand shot up. "No, listen." The faintest hum, a generator maybe, but too rhythmic, too deliberate. She followed it through a corridor lined with glass walls until she reached the central server room. Inside, banks of machines blinked in perfect unison. And on the main screen, a single line of text. "Welcome back, Commander." Garcia froze. "They knew you were coming." Maya's stomach sank. "Pull the drives now." But before Garcia could move, the doors sealed shut. The lights dimmed. Then came the voice, synthetic calm, filtered through the speakers. "You shouldn't have survived Echo." Garcia whispered, "What the hell?" "But perhaps it's better this way," the voice continued. "Every soldier who lives becomes a signal, and signals are so easy to track." Maya's mind raced. It wasn't a recording, it was live. She moved to the console, fingers flying. Trace origin. The screen flashed data, IP addresses shifting faster than her system could follow. Rios shouted from across the room, "We're being scanned. Full biometric sweep." Maya's eyes went cold. "Kill power." Garcia ripped the breaker from the wall. The room went dark, except for one remaining monitor still glowing faint blue. Another line appeared. "We remember Aleppo." The world seemed to tilt. Garcia looked at her, confused. "What does that mean?" Maya didn't answer. She just stared at the word until it burned behind her eyelids. Aleppo, the mission no one talked about. The one she'd buried so deep that even command couldn't dig it up. The monitor flickered again. "You left HIM behind." Her heart clenched. A name she hadn't spoken in years surfaced unbidden. Hawkins. The teammate who never made it out. The one whose body was never recovered. The message vanished. Then the servers began to hum louder, climbing in pitch until it wasn't sound anymore but vibration. Garcia's voice broke. "It's overloading, Maya, we have to." The explosion hit before she could finish. A shockwave of white heat ripped through the server room, throwing them backward. Maya hit the wall, ears ringing, lungs burning. For a few seconds she couldn't tell if she was still alive. Through the smoke she heard Rios coughing, Garcia shouting something she couldn't understand. The roof was gone. The stars above looked unnaturally calm. She forced herself up, staggering toward Garcia. "Status." "Rios is hit. The others I don't know." Maya grabbed her radio, but all channels were dead. Only static. Garcia's voice trembled. Was that meant for you?" Maya stared at the burning ruins of the servers. "No, it was meant to remind me." "Of what?" "That ghosts don't stay buried." They didn't sleep that night. The team regrouped at the extraction site, 2 men missing, 1 wounded. Command wanted answers. Maya had none, only a sinking certainty that someone, somewhere, was rewriting her history and weaponizing it against her. As the medevac chopper arrived, she stood on the hill overlooking the flames. The tattoo along her neck glowed faintly in the reflected firelight. Garcia joined her quietly. "That message," she said, "it knew your name, it knew you." Maya didn't turn. "Yeah." "Who was he, the one in Aleppo?" Maya's voice was barely audible over the wind. "Someone I left behind, someone who didn't deserve it." Garcia studied her, realizing for the first time that the woman who'd saved them all wasn't unbreakable. She was just very good at not letting the cracks show. "What do we do now?" Maya looked toward the burning facility. "We finish what we started," she said. "Whoever's playing this game thinks we're predictable. It's time we prove them wrong." The helicopter's floodlight washed over them, white and blinding. Maya didn't flinch. She just stepped forward, carrying her guilt like a weapon and her silence like armor. The flight back to Germany was silent, except for the steady drone of the rotors. Garcia slept in the seat across from her, head tilted awkwardly, bandaged hands folded over her lap. The others were scattered across the cargo bay, half-conscious, wrapped in foil blankets, smelling of smoke and burned plastic. Maya sat alone near the rear hatch, watching the pale line of dawn rise over the sea. Her rifle lay across her knees. Her arm throbbed where shrapnel had grazed her shoulder, but it wasn't pain that kept her awake. It was the name. Hawkins. That one word from the server screen had cracked something she'd spent years sealing shut. He'd been her second in command during the Aleppo mission, A man with a laugh too loud for covert ops and a faith in humanity Maya had always envied. He was good, too good, and when everything fell apart that night, he trusted her to get them both out. Only one of them had. She could still hear his voice in the comms, broken by interference. "Don't wait for me, Commander, just go." And she had. The explosion that followed lit the whole block. Command declared him KIA. No body recovered, no debrief, no closure, just a line in a report. But now, years later, his name had appeared in a system that shouldn't exist from a voice that knew too much. She closed her eyes. The hum of the engines faded, replaced by the distant sound of Aleppo, the screaming, the smoke, the echo of buildings collapsing under fire. Maya opened her eyes again and stared out at the rising sun. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting, and she didn't know yet if finding it would save her or destroy her. They landed at Ramstein Air Base at 6:30. Colonel Aiken was waiting on the tarmac with his usual cold efficiency, flanked by 2 agents from the Office of Naval Intelligence. His face didn't show surprise when he saw the injuries, only frustration. "You were supposed to retrieve data, not level half a compound," he said. Maya stepped off the ramp, helmet tucked under one arm. "It wasn't us, sir. It was an ambush." "By whom?" "Unknown. But they knew our drop point, our call signs, and the fact that I was leading the op." That last part hung in the air. Aiken's jaw tightened. "You're suggesting internal compromise." "I'm not suggesting," Maya said. "I'm confirming." He studied her for a long moment. "You have proof?" Maya handed him the blackened data drive from the wreckage. "The server was rigged to explode, but not before sending this. It's encrypted with my old command signature from Aleppo." That made him flinch, if only slightly. "That mission, classified above your current clearance level." "My clearance was revoked after I buried half my team," she said flatly. "Maybe that's why whoever's behind this thought I'd never see the connection." Aiken exhaled through his nose. "Get cleaned up, debrief at 900, and Commander." "Yes, sir." "Watch who you trust." She gave a faint, humorless smile. "Always do." By 900, the debriefing room felt too small. The hum of fluorescent lights made her headache pulse harder. The analysts projected the data from the damaged drive on the wall. Fragments of code, shredded signal logs, and ghost traces of a single voice pattern. "A voice print." Garcia leaned forward. "Is that?" Maya already knew. The waveform was distinct, familiar. She didn't even need to hear the filtered playback to recognize it. "Hawkins." The analyst frowned. "We cleaned it 3 times. There's a 92% match with a file attached to the Aleppo operation from 6 years ago." Aiken's expression darkened. "That's impossible. Hawkins died in the field." Maya stared at the wave pattern as if looking at a ghost. "Apparently not." Garcia looked between them, confused. "So this guy, your teammate, he's alive, and he's part of the infiltration." Maya didn't answer right away. Her throat felt tight. 6 years of silence, 6 years of guilt, and now his voice had resurfaced as the enemy. Aiken shut off the display. "Commander Reeves, you're too close to this. We'll handle the trace from here." Maya stood. "With respect, sir, you won't find him without me." "This isn't personal." "It became personal when my past started killing my people." Their eyes locked. Aiken finally sighed. "You've got 48 hours, find out what you can. After that, it's mine." Maya nodded once and walked out. The base library was quiet that evening. A small, dimly lit room with a handful of terminals nobody used. Maya sat alone at one of them, typing strings of code faster than the system's security could keep up. Garcia slipped in silently and took the seat beside her. "I figured you'd be here," she said. "They said you're grounded." "I'm not great at following orders." "I'm starting to notice." Garcia leaned in. watching as Maya bypassed another firewall. "So you really think he's alive?" Maya didn't answer directly. You ever believe something so completely that you built your life around it, and then, one day, it collapses, and you have to live with what's left? Garcia nodded slowly. "Yeah, once." Maya exhaled. That's what Hawkins was. He believed in the mission, believed in me. When we lost him, I buried more than a teammate. I buried the part of me that thought any of this meant something. And if he's alive, then I buried the wrong thing. The search interface flickered. Then a file appeared, heavily redacted, tagged Olive094 eyes only. She decrypted it using a pattern woven into her tattoo, line, curve, dot. The system accepted it. A video feed loaded. Static, then a face. Hawkins, older, leaner, eyes darker. He looked directly into the camera. "If you're seeing this, Maya, it means I made it out." Garcia's breath caught. Maya didn't move. "They pulled me from the rubble, not our people. Contractors. Told me the mission was compromised by command. They showed me proof, orders signed in your name. You left me, and they made me believe it was deliberate." The feed glitched, cutting to new footage. Hawkins, sitting in a dim room, wearing civilian clothes, surrounded by computers. "They're not who they say they are, Maya, but neither are you anymore. You've built your life on lies you didn't create. Now you're chasing shadows. Don't come looking for me. If you do, they'll find you." The video ended. The screen went black. Garcia whispered, "Jesus." Maya sat back, hands shaking. He'd been alive all this time. And worse, he thought she had betrayed him. The air felt too thin, the walls too close. Garcia touched her shoulder. "This isn't your fault." Maya laughed bitterly. "Then why does it feel like it?" That night, sleep didn't come. She walked the perimeter of the base alone, the cold biting at her skin. Every sound, the crunch of gravel, the hum of generators, felt amplified. In the distance, the floodlights painted the air in sterile white. She stopped by the fence, gripping the metal, staring out into the darkness beyond. "You left me." The words from the recording looped endlessly in her head. She replayed that night 1,000 times, searching for a way she could have saved him. But the truth was brutal. There hadn't been time. The building was collapsing. The airstrike was seconds away, and he'd told her to go. But the guilt never cared about logic. Now someone had taken that guilt and turned it into a weapon. A noise behind her made her turn. Garcia again, jacket thrown over her uniform. "You should sleep," she said gently. "I can't." "Then talk." Maya hesitated, then looked back toward the horizon. "The night we lost him, I gave the order to pull out. I told the team to move without him. He was trapped. I made a choice, one life against 4. Command called it tactical. I called it cowardice." Garcia shook her head. "You did what you had to." "Maybe," Maya said. "But someone's using that choice to build something bigger, a story that paints me as the traitor. They're rewriting the past." Garcia leaned on the fence beside her. "So what do we do?" Maya turned to her. "We find the ones who taught them how." The next morning, the investigation resumed in secret. Using fragments from the Aleppo encryption, Maya traced the data relay from the Greek servers to a central hub in Istanbul, an anonymous corporate front handling encrypted logistics for multiple defense contractors. It was the perfect disguise: legitimate, protected, invisible. When she presented the findings to Aiken, he stared at the coordinates for a long time. "This could start a war," he said quietly. "It already did," Maya replied. "We just haven't acknowledged it yet." He looked at her, not as an officer now, but as a soldier who'd seen too much. "You're walking into a trap." "Maybe," she said, "but whoever's behind this thinks I'm still haunted by Aleppo." Aiken raised an eyebrow. "Aren't you?" She looked down at her tattoo, the faded black lines across her shoulder, the newest one added only weeks ago. "Yes," she said softly, "but I've learned how to use my ghosts." That night in her quarters, Maya stared at a single photo she'd kept hidden, a young man laughing, his arm around her shoulder, dust in his hair and sunlight in his eyes. "Hawkins." She traced the edge of the picture with her thumb. Then she folded it once, placed it back in her pocket, and whispered, "I'm coming, old friend. Not to save you, to finish what we started." Outside, the rain began to fall, slow, relentless, cleansing. And somewhere, in the shadows of a city she hadn't yet reached, a man watched the same rain and smiled. Because he already knew she was coming. They touched down under the cover of midnight. Istanbul stretched out below them, a sprawl of light and shadow, ancient and modern, where the Bosphorus divided continents and secrets alike. The C-17's rear hatch opened to cold wind and the faint scent of sea salt. Maya stepped out first, boots hitting the tarmac with practiced silence. Her new team followed, smaller, leaner, carefully chosen. Garcia was with her again, shoulder fully healed, face set in that calm readiness Maya had come to rely on. They weren't there officially. No insignia, no papers, just ghosts walking the line between diplomacy and deniability. Their target was a logistics firm called Ravenco Dynamics, housed in a glass and steel high-rise in the city's financial district. On paper, Ravenco handled transport and encryption contracts for NATO. In reality, it was the digital brain behind the network that had fed false intel to Blacksite Echo and dozens of other covert operations. Maya's briefing had been simple: confirm the link, find the handler, and extract data quietly. But quiet rarely lasted long. Inside the safe house overlooking the Bosphorus, the team gathered around a digital map spread across the table. Garcia pointed to the high-rise's upper floors. "Server access is through this wing, internal security, biometric locks, closed-circuit system running on a private subnet. We'll have 10 minutes before they flag the breach." Rios, bandaged but back in the field, adjusted his gear. 10 minutes to get in, pull files, and get out of a corporate fortress. Easy. Garcia smirked. "If you're not the one hacking." Maya watched them, the faintest shadow of a smile touching her lips. They'd grown into a team, one built from the ashes of Echo. Still, something about this mission felt heavier. The data trail, the traps, the recordings, everything pointed to a larger intelligence structure, and every clue led closer to him. She hadn't told them about Hawkins yet, not fully. Some truths still needed to stay buried. At 200 hours, the infiltration began. They moved through the narrow alleys near the compound's perimeter, hidden beneath the thrum of passing traffic. A light drizzle fell, dampening the sound of their steps. Garcia handled overwatch from the adjacent rooftop, eyes locked on the feed from her drone. Patrol at 12 o'clock, 2 guards, same route, 40-second rotation. Maya crouched at the service gate, pulling a small tool from her belt. The device hummed faintly as she inserted it into the lock. 3 seconds later, the door clicked open. They slipped inside like shadows. The building's interior was a study in sterile perfection: glass walls, polished steel, the faint hum of servers vibrating through the floors. Rios whispered, "Place gives me the creeps." "Stay focused," Maya replied softly. They reached the elevator shaft, then climbed the maintenance ladder to the 27th floor. Garcia fed the security loop from her position, freezing the hallway cameras. "Feed yours for 9 minutes," she said over comms. "Make them count." Maya and Rios emerged into the corridor. At the end, a frosted glass door read, "Authorized personnel only." Maya approached the biometric scanner. Garcia, "Send the loop." A moment later, the scanner's light blinked green. The door slid open. Inside, the air was colder. Rows of servers lined the room, blinking with faint blue light. The hum was steady, a mechanical heartbeat. Rios moved to the nearest console, plugging in now. Maya scanned the walls, the corners, every reflection in the glass. No alarms yet. Not yet, Garcia said, but the loop's degrading faster than expected. 7 minutes. Maya turned to Rios. Copy what you can. As he worked, the system began decrypting layers of data, transfer logs, funding trails, communication nodes. Names flickered across the screen. Garcia's voice came through the earpiece again. I'm seeing movement on the lower levels. Security team just switched routes. Define switched. They're heading your way. Maya's pulse quickened, but her voice stayed calm. 5 minutes, Rios. He didn't answer, too focused on the screen. Then something changed. The console froze. The hum deepened. The lights flickered once, twice, then every monitor in the room went black. A single phrase appeared across the main screen. You should have listened. Garcia's voice spiked. They've locked the building. Rios swore under his breath. They triggered a counter-protocol. The security shutters slammed down over the glass walls. Alarms blared. Red lights filled the corridor. Maya moved fast, pulling the drive from the console. We're done. Extraction now. But before they could reach the door, the intercom crackled to life. Always the hero, Maya. Her blood ran cold. Still trying to fix what you broke. The voice was distorted, but it was unmistakable. Hawkins. Rios froze. Who the hell? Move, Maya barked. They sprinted back into the corridor, gunfire already echoing from the stairwell below. Garcia's voice was steady but strained. I've got eyes on hostiles, multiple tangos, full tack gear. They knew you were coming. Maya's breath came hard. They always do. They reached the service shaft, descended 2 levels before the first explosion tore through the floor above them. Dust rained down. Rios slipped, grabbing the ladder just in time. Maya leaned over. You good? He nodded. Yeah, go. They dropped into a maintenance corridor just as the sprinklers erupted overhead. The air filled with steam and smoke. Garcia's voice crackled. Exit route compromised. Your best shot, the sub-basement. I'll guide you. They followed her directions, weaving through the labyrinth of hallways until they reached a metal door marked Utility Access. Behind it, the hum of turbines echoed through the dark. Maya kicked it open. Garcia, I need an extraction point now. I'm on it, Garcia replied. Rerouting traffic near the waterfront. You've got a narrow window in 8 minutes. You'll need to cross the tunnel system under the compound. Rios glanced at the flooding corridor ahead. 8 minutes, that's suicide. Maya looked at him, then let's survive it. They plunged into the tunnel. The air was thick, damp, vibrating with the roar of the city above. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes, mixing with the smell of oil and ozone. Rios stumbled but kept moving, clutching the drive to his chest. Behind them, bootsteps echoed. Maya turned, firing 2 bursts. Shadows fell, more followed. They reached a junction and split right. The exit was close, she could feel it. Then a voice called through the static of her earpiece. You don't have to run, Maya. She stopped dead. You came all this way for the truth, so hear it. Garcia's voice broke through. Commander, who is that? Cut the feed, Maya snapped. You left me there, Hawkins said softly. They showed me the orders, the footage. I waited for you to come back. The pain in his tone was real, too real. Maya's grip tightened on her rifle. Where are you? Closer than you think. A gunshot rang out from the darkness ahead. Rios cried out and fell, clutching his leg. Maya fired blindly down the corridor, muzzle flashes lighting the tunnel. When the silence returned, her voice was raw. Garcia, extraction point. 1 minute north, cargo tunnel intersection. She hauled Rios up, slinging his arm over her shoulder. He winced but nodded. They staggered through the last stretch, water rising around their boots, the tunnel shaking with distant detonations. When they reached the junction, A steel door loomed ahead, old, rusted, half-submerged. Maya shoved it open. Cold night air hit them. The Bosphorus stretched beyond, lights shimmering on black water. Garcia's evac team was already there, a small Zodiac boat idling against the stone edge. "Go," she shouted. Maya dragged Rios aboard and turned for one last look. For a second through the smoke of the tunnel, she saw him, or thought she did. A silhouette, broad-shouldered, familiar, watching. Then he was gone. The boat sped off into the current. The city's lights receded behind them. Garcia sat beside her, drenched and shaking. Who was that voice, Maya? Maya didn't answer immediately. She stared down at the drive still clutched in Rios's hand. The casing was cracked, half-fried, but maybe, just maybe, something survived inside. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above the wind. "Someone I thought was dead." Garcia's eyes widened. "You mean?" "Yes. Hawkins." Maya nodded slowly. "And he's not just alive, he's leading them." They reached the extraction point just before dawn. The sea was calm, deceptive in its peace. As the transport lifted off, Maya looked out over the horizon. Istanbul glittered in the distance, beautiful, indifferent, dangerous. Garcia leaned close. "If Hawkins really is behind this, what are you going to do?" Maya didn't look away from the window. "Find out why." Garcia hesitated. "And if he's gone too far to save?" Maya's expression hardened. "Then I'll finish what Aleppo started." The hum of the engines filled the silence that followed. Somewhere in the dark below, the network pulsed like a living thing, feeding on lies, feeding on the past. And in the reflection of the glass beside her, Maya saw her tattoo catch the early light, the lines sharp, the black ink fading into scars. She whispered to herself, "Every mark has meaning, every ghost leaves a trail." Then she closed her eyes. The next hunt had already begun. The next mission wasn't authorized. By the time Washington knew what she was doing, it was already too late to stop her. The flight into Eastern Europe was quiet, no insignia, no manifest, no official record. Just Maya, Garcia, and a stripped-down recon team flying low under civilian radar. The encrypted drive they pulled from Istanbul sat on Maya's lap like a live charge. Inside it was the location she'd been chasing, since the first time his voice broke through the static. "Hawkins." The coordinates pointed to a decommissioned research complex outside Varna, Bulgaria, officially shuttered a decade ago after a NATO funding scandal. Unofficially, it had become something else, a private intelligence hub feeding data to every contractor and shadow network they'd been tracking. Garcia stared at the satellite photo on her tablet. "That place looks like a tomb." Maya's tone was even. "Then let's dig up what's buried." They landed in the forest before dawn. Mist clung to the trees. The cold bit through their gear as they hiked the final kilometer on foot. The complex appeared out of the fog, gray concrete, broken windows, steel fencing patched with newer wiring. Someone had revived the corpse. Garcia adjusted her rifle. Motion sensors on the south wall, thermal reads strange, not guards, machines. "Automated defense grid," Maya said. "They're expecting a frontal assault." "Lucky we're ghosts." They circled the perimeter until they reached an unmarked service tunnel half buried under vines. Maya pried the hatch open and dropped inside. The tunnel smelled of rust and stale air. A single flickering light guided them forward until they reached a reinforced bulkhead. Beyond it, faint blue light shimmered. Garcia's whisper cracked the silence. "You sure he's here?" "No," Maya said, "but whoever runs this place knows my name. That's enough." She keyed the panel. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the facility looked alive. Servers thrummed. Monitors glowed. Streams of data flowed across glass walls like veins of light. And there, at the center of it all, stood a figure. Tall, broad-shouldered, his back to them. Maya raised her weapon. Turn around. He did. The years had changed him, but not beyond recognition. The same scar over the left brow. The same calm eyes, only colder now, like glass cooled too fast to be human. Hawkins. He smiled faintly. You found me. Her hands tightened on the rifle. You made sure I would. Garcia moved to flank him, but he lifted one hand. Easy, Sergeant. You're standing in a pressure field. One wrong step and the whole floor goes up. She froze. Maya lowered her weapon a fraction. What did they do to you? He stepped closer into the light. Metal glinted beneath his collarbone, implants, microports, faint circuitry running like silver veins beneath the skin. They saved me, he said. Pulled me from the rubble when you left me to die, gave me purpose when command erased my name. That's not saving, she said quietly. That's repurposing. He laughed soft, bitter. You still talk like a briefing document. Garcia whispered, Commander. Maya motioned for silence. What is this place? She asked. The network, he replied. The same one you've been chasing since Echo. They built it from the bones of every failed operation, every agent who disappeared, every file they buried. We are the Blacksites now, Maya. The forgotten turned functional. You're running it. I'm perfecting it. You saw what command does to its own. They hide mistakes behind clearance levels. I'm done hiding. Maya's voice steadied. By feeding intel to enemies, by killing our people. Collateral calibration, he said. A few to expose the many. You believe that? I lived that. He stepped closer until only a few feet separated them. You still don't see it. They sent you to kill a ghost they created. Every lie I was told, they forged it in your name. Maya's throat tightened, and you believed them. I needed to. His voice cracked, human for the first time, because the alternative was admitting you left me for the mission. Her rifle lowered. You told me to go. I told you to come back. The silence after that felt heavier than gunfire. Garcia's earpiece buzzed softly. Commander, we've got movement. Multiple heat signatures inbound from the outer perimeter. Maya didn't look away from him. You called them, didn't you? He nodded once. They want to see the face of the woman who broke their network. I wanted them to see you. Why? Because you're proof that loyalty can still mean something. Then he turned, typing a command into the nearest console. The lights shifted from blue to red. A low siren began to hum beneath the floor. Garcia swore. He's arming the self-destruct. Hawkins glanced over his shoulder. You of all people should appreciate a clean exit. Maya's voice hardened. You don't have to do this. Neither did you, he said, but you still left me. She took a step forward. If you want justice, help me expose them. We can end this the right way. He looked at her for a long time. The faintest flicker of the man he used to be surfacing behind the implants and rage. Then he whispered, there is no right way left. The alarm blared louder. Garcia shouted, Commander, 2 minutes to detonation. Maya lunged forward, grabbing his arm. You'll kill us all. Maybe that's what it takes to erase what they built. She slammed him against the console, their weapons clattering to the floor. Sparks flared as the system short-circuited. He struggled, then froze, staring into her eyes, breath shaking. I waited for you. I came back, she said, just later than you needed. He laughed once brokenly, always too late. Then he pulled a small detonator from his vest. Garcia raised her rifle. Drop it. For a heartbeat, time held still. 3 soldiers, 1 history, 1 choice. Maya's voice cracked. Hawkins, please. Something shifted in his eyes, recognition, regret. He looked down at the device, then back at her. I guess you finally outranked me, he said softly. And before she could move, he twisted the detonator's casing apart, disabling it instead of triggering it. The alarm stopped. Silence. Maya exhaled shakily. Garcia lowered her weapon. What did you just do? He looked at her with something like peace. Gave you a head start. A new alarm began, deeper, mechanical. On the far side of the chamber, steel doors opened, revealing armed contractors flooding in. Go, he said. They'll kill you if you stay. Maya's voice broke. Come with us. He shook his head. They still need a ghost to blame. Garcia grabbed Maya's arm. Commander, we have to move. Maya hesitated, then reached into her vest, pulling a small, encrypted drive, the Istanbul data clone. She pressed it into his hand. If you ever want to make this right, send it here. She traced a pattern in the air, the coordinates encoded in her tattoo. He nodded once. Always thought that ink was vanity. It's memory, she said, the kind that survives the fire. Then she turned and ran. The escape was chaos. Gunfire followed them through the corridors. Garcia covered the rear, her rounds sparking off steel. They reached the tunnel just as explosions rippled through the upper floors, controlled demolitions, erasing evidence just like echo. When they finally emerged into the forest, dawn was breaking. Smoke rose behind them, curling into the gray sky. Garcia collapsed to her knees, gasping. Tell me he didn't just die in there. Maya stared at the rising column of smoke. If there's one thing Hawkins doesn't do, she said quietly, it's die easy. Garcia looked at her. You think he's still alive? Maya didn't answer. Because she didn't know. 3 days later, in a safe house outside Warsaw, Maya sat alone with the recovered fragments from the facility. The data was partial, corrupted, but enough to reveal the truth. Every Blacksite, every false intercept, every manipulated mission, all linked back to a single contractor chain feeding both sides of the war economy. Ravenco Dynamics was just a shell. The real network was hidden behind it, Project Spectre. A system built to engineer conflict, to ensure there would always be another Echo, another Aleppo, another reason to spend lives and money in equal measure. And Hawkins had been its prototype. Garcia entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of coffee. Command, demanding a report. What do we tell them? The truth, Maya said, the part they can stomach. Garcia handed her a mug, and the rest. Maya looked out the window at the cold sunrise. The rest stays with us, until it's time. Garcia hesitated. You really think he sent that data to your coordinates? Maya nodded toward the encrypted receiver blinking faintly on the table. He will. He still believes in something. That's enough. Outside, the first snow began to fall, silent, cleansing. She touched the tattoo on her shoulder, feeling the raised lines beneath her skin. Each mark a memory, each memory a promise. And somewhere, in the shadows between governments and corporations, a man with new scars and an old conscience uploaded a single file to an unknown satellite link. The snow kept falling. Soft, soundless, relentless. From the window of the safe house, Maya watched the world blur into white. Her breath left faint ghosts on the glass. Behind her, computers hummed, lines of encrypted code slowly decrypting the last transmission that had arrived that morning. He'd sent it. The file from Hawkins. Garcia stood nearby, arms folded, eyes on the monitor. That's his signature, right? Maya nodded. It's him. The file contained fragments, coordinates, audio logs, encrypted ledgers linking Project Spectre to a lattice of defense contractors, intelligence officers, and financial brokers. It was enough to burn half of Washington if it ever saw daylight. Garcia exhaled. This could change everything. Maya shook her head. No, it'll just make them better at hiding. Then why risk it? Because truth isn't for them, she said quietly. It's for the people who still believe it exists. By noon, the transmission had been uploaded to 3 secure drops, 2 to international oversight agencies, 1 anonymously to the press. Command would deny everything, of course. They always did. But the pattern was exposed now. The myth of infallibility had cracked. And for Maya, that was enough. Garcia watched her from across the room. You ever think about what happens when this goes public? You'll be the scapegoat. I already was, Maya replied. At least this time it's for the right reason. Garcia leaned against the wall. You really think Hawkins wanted you to finish this? Maya turned toward her, expression unreadable. He wanted peace. I just don't think he remembered what that looked like. She powered down the terminal, the last line of code fading from the screen. The room felt suddenly quieter. Garcia, she said, pack your gear, we're moving tonight. Where? Somewhere they won't follow. Night came early. The road out of Warsaw was lined with frost and silence. They drove with headlights dimmed, the hum of the engine the only sound. Somewhere beyond the border an extraction team was waiting, a clean slate, new identities, new orders. Garcia broke the silence first. So what happens after? After what? After the story ends. Maya smiled faintly. Stories like ours don't end, they just stop being told. Garcia nodded slowly, understanding. They reached a checkpoint, an abandoned way station by the river. Snow drifted across the cracked asphalt. No lights, no movement. Maya stepped out first, scanning the shadows. We're early. Then a voice came through the darkness. You always were. Garcia's hand went to her weapon instantly. From the other side of the bridge, a figure emerged, hooded, limping slightly, carrying a small black case. Maya's pulse spiked. Hawkins. He stopped 10 meters away, the same faint smile, the same haunted eyes. Garcia whispered, he's alive. Maya nodded, I told you. He raised the case. You uploaded the file. I did. Then you already know what comes next. She studied him carefully. Why are you here? To finish it. He opened the case. Inside was a hard drive identical to the one she'd used to expose Spectre. Only this one still contained the network's root access codes. I didn't destroy it, he said. You were right. There's a way to end it without fire. He looked older now, years compressed into months, guilt weighing more than time. Maya stepped closer. Why give this to me? Because they'll never stop hunting me, but you, he smiled sadly. You're still part of the machine they built. You can slip through its veins one last time. She stared at the drive. And if I take it? Then it ends with you. Garcia glanced between them, tension thick. Commander, this could be a trap. Maya ignored her. What happens to you? Hawkins looked out over the frozen river. I disappear again. That's what ghosts do. She took a step forward. You don't have to. I do, he said. Because everything I've done, every person I've lost, it all started with that night in Aleppo. The day I stopped believing in mercy. You still have that luxury. Her throat tightened. Mercy isn't a luxury. He met her eyes. It's a burden one you still carry. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she reached out and took the case. Their hands brushed, a brief contact charged with years of unfinished words. I wish I'd gone back for you, she whispered. I know, he said. That's why I came back for you. Before she could reply, headlights flared from the far end of the bridge. Black SUVs unmarked, moving fast. Garcia cursed, we're burned. Maya turned toward Hawkins. You led them here. He shook his head. No, they tracked you, not me. Gunfire split the night. Bullets tore through the snow. Move, Maya shouted. They dove behind the guardrail as rounds sparked off metal. Garcia returned fire, precise, controlled. Maya pulled the case tight against her chest and scanned for escape. There, the riverbank. Downstream, she yelled. They sprinted through the snow, bullets chasing them. Hawkins stumbled but kept pace. At the edge, Maya turned back, firing short bursts to cover their retreat. The gunfire from the bridge slowed, replaced by the rumble of engines. "Boats!" Garcia shouted. Maya's eyes found a small maintenance skiff half buried in ice. She shoved it free, started the motor. "Go." Hawkins hesitated. "They'll follow you." "Then let them," she said. He smiled faintly, still giving orders. Still following them. He pushed off the dock, giving them one last shove before the current took hold. The boat drifted into the fog, engines low, the gunfire fatting behind them. Maya turned once, but Hawkins was gone, swallowed by the white. She didn't know if he'd escaped or if this was his final disappearance, but part of her believed he'd found what he was searching for, an ending of his own choosing. Hours later, at a NATO relay station in Norway, Maya uploaded the final data from the case. It wasn't dramatic, no alarms, no explosions, just a quiet, invisible transfer, the kind that could topple empires without a single shot fired. When it was done, she removed her encrypted badge and placed it on the console. Garcia watched her. "You're resigning." Maya nodded. "I'm done being their weapon." "You think they'll let you walk?" "They can't chase what doesn't exist." Garcia looked at her, really looked, and understood. The mission was over, but the war between duty and conscience would never leave her. "What will you do now?" Maya smiled faintly. "Disappear, same as every good ghost." Weeks passed. The world moved on. News reports broke quietly, buried under other headlines. Leaked documents, exposed contracts, resignations that never reached prime time. The name Project Spectre never appeared, but its shadow lingered, a warning in classified circles, a whisper among soldiers who knew too much. Somewhere off the grid, in a small coastal town where the mountains met the sea, a woman rented a cabin under a name that wasn't hers. She fished in the mornings, fixed engines in the afternoons, and never spoke of who she'd been. But sometimes, when the fog rolled in and the waves crashed just right, she'd roll up her sleeve and trace the tattoo that wound across her shoulder, the map of her life, the ledger of names, the living memory of everything she'd lost and learned. Each line still meant something, each scar still spoke. And now at the end of it all there was one last mark, a thin spiral near her collarbone, newly inked, unfinished. Beneath it, small coordinates, Echo, Aleppo, Varna. A timeline carved in flesh. Garcia visited once, months later, carrying nothing but a sealed envelope. Inside was a small flash drive, untraceable, and a single sentence typed on a blank page. "Mercy is survival." No signature, but she didn't need one. She found Maya sitting by the shore, staring out at the horizon. "Was it him?" Garcia asked. Maya nodded. "He made it." "What now?" Maya's gaze stayed on the water. "Now we live with what we know." Garcia sat beside her in silence. The wind carried the scent of salt and pine. Waves broke softly against the rocks. After a long time, Garcia said, "You ever regret it, all of it?" Maya smiled faintly, tired, honest. "Regret's the proof you still have a conscience." "And the tattoo?" She traced it with her fingers. "A reminder that dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts." The sun dipped low over the water, casting gold across the waves. Two soldiers sat in the fading light, one haunted, one healing, both knowing that what they'd done would never be written in any report, never praised, never condemned. But somewhere in the quiet places between war and peace, their story would live on, not as legend, not as myth, but as truth. That the bravest acts are the silent ones. That mercy, not victory, is the last mark a warrior can leave behind. And as the tide rolled in, erasing footprints from the sand, Maya Reeves, Commander, Navy SEAL, ghost of the Blacksite, finally let the silence speak for her.